to this, which is the 13th session of the Proud Depressives movement. And the topic and the speakers, I think, are very, very apt for today's session because the focus is actually on the pandemic, and we've got two excellent speakers with us. So let me just introduce you and so that you have the picture about the speakers. So we have with us Dr. Smita Salunke, who is the author of a very celebrated book, Within Four Walls of the Mind. I have personally not had a chance to have a look at it, but I have heard a lot of good things about the book. Apart from this, he's also a very passionate Kathak dancer, somebody who cares for the environment. She's an avid traveler, and she is a professor, just like many of us. So, and this is her first first novel as an author in the non-fiction category. In this book, she has talked about various issues relating to gender, society, environment, etc. And apart from this, Dr. Smita has a keen interest in social work and working with senior citizens, women and children, families of police personnel, etc. So we welcome you, ma'am, and we look forward to hearing from your experiences. Uh, in the times of the pandemic, it is excellent that we have with us Ms. Soneha Nayak, who is a known wellness and resiliency coach, and she is a trained clinical psychologist, and she is going to be speaking to us about various aspects of the mind, and she has a presentation on the working of the mind during the pandemic. So, at this point of time, before we proceed, I would also like to request our friend, Madam Sejal, our IT expert, to please play the video of our founder, Madam Archana Verma, and who's been not able to join us for the very first time. So, because of official preoccupations. So, Sejal, ma'am, can you please go ahead and hear her video message? Play the video message. Thank you.
Hi everybody, hi Proud Depressive and friends. I cannot tell you how left out I'm feeling missing this first session ever of our Proud Depressive conversations. As you all know, that COVID has played havoc in the minds of people. In a way it's been good because it has put mental health as an agenda. And people have started coming to terms that even, so-called normal people can suffer mental health when many so-called normal people have suffered depression during COVID, because COVID has exposed that when things become uncertain, then very few people have the ability to cope with uncertainty. So unraveling this uncertainty and unraveling her mind in the time of COVID is Dr. Smita Salunke, who has written this beautiful book, Within the Four Walls of the Mind, which deals with the mind which suffers during COVID and how she coped. It's a beautiful book. I read it recently and want to really compliment you, Smita, for your beautiful writing. And I also wish this young and brilliant...
Thank you, Dr. Parikshit. Good afternoon, everyone. And it is my honor to be a part of this wonderful group. And I'm thankful to Amita Prasad ma'am, who's the ACS Bangalore. She put me across to this group. And of course, then I had a word with Archana ma'am, and then here I am right in front of you. And I thank Archana Verma ma'am for having me here. I thank Dr. Lisa, who has been constantly pursuing about how we would be going about this, because this is the first time that I have joined this group. And I've joined the group and I'm the first speaker. So I had no idea about what was actually happening. But then, of course, she has been kind enough to share with me the details about this group and how it has been moving on. Thank you, Proud Depressors. Thank you once again for having me here. Um, Coming to today's topic of mind in the pandemic, let me tell you, just 100 days before the pandemic, the outbreak of the pandemic, rather, I was zipping across in the cities of Europe. I went to meet my son over there. I had some family friends to meet, so I was moving around, and then I was having a great time. And I came back. I came back around in the month end of November, and then the entire December I spent with college work, whatever pending work was there. Had to cover up all that. January, the entire month, I was again out for a month-long course. I was in some other state. I was not in Mumbai. I returned February again, busy, busy, busy with exams, etc. And March, all of a sudden, we get the news of some virus, and that this could probably be a pandemic. And then again, we are not, and we were even not allowed to, mark our presence on the biometric in college. We had to just stop doing all of that. So I said, "Oh, what exactly?" Because this is something was totally unprecedented. It's never happened before. So okay, fine, that was fine. And then all of a sudden there was news that look, we are going to shut down, and everywhere, of course, everything was shutting down. And I said, okay, fine, maybe it's this, just few days. Like everyone must have thought it's just maybe 15 days or 3 weeks or 1 month at the most. 1 month also, I think it's too much that we consider. But I think most of us felt that, it's just maybe a few days and then things will be back to normal. Of course, those few days are still going on. Even after a year, we are still not back working as usual, not meeting people as usual. But then, yes, this is going on. The worst thing that was happening is whatever I was seeing. I normally am not a very I'm not very keen about watching TV all the time. Very few things. It's something very important, then I'm watching news or maybe a match. And I'm never watching news. I'm sorry, I'm not watching TV otherwise. And then this was something very important, and I had to keep myself abreast of whatever was happening around me. So I sat in front of the TV, and the problem was I just got hooked onto TV. And then the fear started, the fear, the nervousness that started off. That started off in the sense because my son wasn't with me. My son was studying in Europe. My daughter was studying in another part of India. My spouse, he was working. He's posted somewhere else, not in Mumbai. So I was, we had four people in the house and 4 people in 4 different places. And I was here at home and worrying about each and every one, each and everything. And then again, worried about what I was watching on TV. The bigger blow came when I have a neighbor, and she's a friend, and her husband passed away. Her husband passed away. Everything was at a standstill. No transport network, nothing. Both her sons were studying in US. And she couldn't call them because there was no way that the sons could come here. She was, at a mercy. She couldn't get flowers. It was a time when she couldn't get flowers. So that was something that had really shaken me up. And then the sons were attending the funeral on a Google Meet. And this woman, she was totally shattered. For a month, she was calling me literally every second day. And of course, she was living alone in a house, though she's a neighbor. She's not very close that, we could go. And at that time, we were in a position where even if in Mumbai, the problem is that you live in buildings, you're living in flats. So when you're getting out of the flat or the building, you're straight away on the road. You don't have a ground or a park or something, where very rarely they must be having wherever there is a big society or a big housing complex. Otherwise, you just step out on the road. The moment you step out on the road, there are police vehicles passing by and asking you to be at home. Please do not come out, be at home. Please do not come out, be at home. So this was very difficult. We couldn't meet people. So, and then all these things, I started consuming all this, and somehow I felt, all that was happening around me was consuming my mind. Constantly, I was trying to find out, how many cases have there been in Prague where my son was studying. I was concerned about that. I was concerned about how to get my daughter back from school because she hadn't come. and then how to communicate with them, how do I make plans. I was constantly making plans and canceling, making plans and canceling, because the moment I make some plans, then there used to be some airline calling off their people from duty, and there were no flights. So it was really getting very, very difficult, and I didn't know what was happening. I was constantly watching the news, trying to understand from experts. There used to be these panel of experts who used to be always there discussing the situation. Neither the scientists nor the politicians nor WHO, nobody had a clear picture of what was happening, why it was happening. And the worst was, I am a bit of a sensitive person, but doesn't mean that all this could affect me so much the way it was affecting me then. It had started affecting me really very bad, because I could see senior citizens around me who needed help. There were some, of course, who didn't need help, but there were some who needed physiotherapy help or some kind of a help every day. And these people who used to come over there, they were totally stopped. Nobody was supposed to enter the housing societies. Nobody's supposed to. No, there was no movement at all. Okay, so all this, kids were not allowed. I could see kids from my building terrace. I could see kids, all locked up in their homes. Normally, we used to find people, of course, not much space, but then still kids normally find place to play, have their own bit of mischief. But then there was nothing happening. Everything was at a standstill. I remember my friends used to keep calling me up and say, "Arey, we have this particular webinar. We are organizing this webinar. We are organizing this quiz. You have to be a part of it." There were so many of them. There were a slew of webinars that were happening at that time, and of course, I was getting notifications too about that. But then I was not. I started feeling that I had a very hazy kind of mental space. It had become very hazy gradually, and then there were days when I couldn't hardly think. I couldn't think. There was a lot of listlessness. I mean, I can't exactly explain, but I know I was getting very numb. Mentally, I could feel I'm gone all numb. I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't analyze things properly. And people who used to keep telling me, "Smita, you have to attend this particular lecture. I'm going to speak." I have friends, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't remember that, oh, fine, today was this webinar and I had to hear that particular person. In fact, I couldn't even remember the days of the week. I don't know how many of us went through that situation, but then this was something that was happening to me for the first time. And every bit of negativity around me was, I feel, something that was, just getting absorbed within me, within my mind. And my mind had totally stopped functioning. There were many things that were happening. Like, even I initially, I started writing. I started writing, and I thought that probably that will be a channel. I'll channelize my energy, my thoughts towards something, and I'll start writing down. Of course, I was writing down each and every detail of what was happening and my take over it, like what I felt about those things. As if the future generation will depend on what I'm writing and how the pandemic progresses. But of course, that was not the case. I just kept on writing because I thought that would keep my sanity intact. But then that wasn't happening, because I felt that as I continued writing more and more, I had to. I was very particular that I had to write all details, all facts. I didn't want to write anything that was not a fact. I was just jotting down, like a documentary thing. I was jotting down, and whenever I felt, I did start writing about my opinion about that particular situation that was arising. Whether it was about the migrant crisis, and migrant crisis was something that had affected me a lot. Seeing people, die on their way home, girls in a very shabby state, and people without food. So that was something that was, very tormenting for me. Very, very tormenting for me. Surprisingly, at that time, any small earthquake or any small climatic disaster also felt very big to me. I don't know why. Everything, every small problem appeared magnified, and that was causing a lot of fear, lot of nervousness, and I just couldn't understand what was happening to me. And then all of a sudden, I get a call from my Kathak guru. She says that Smita, start preparing. We have the exam coming up, and that was like a wake up call for me. I said, yes, Guru Ma, we have this exam. So she said, yeah, you have to start preparing. It's a week later. And I started practicing. Initially, I knew the state of mind that I was in. I could see, of course, I could see people posting happy pictures of the past. I could see people, playing music and singing. Of course, they were all trying to drive away the blues and all the uh, all the negative impacts of isolation that people were facing, because social distancing was something very new for us, for this generation, that we are the living human beings right now, the current lot that are alive right now. That was quite difficult, and human beings, I feel, are social animals and therefore cannot live in too much of social isolation. But then we were forced into a socially isolated space. So seeing that and then not doing anything, not going out anything, was affecting me very badly. And then when she called me up and she said, Sveta, look, we have this exam coming up and you have to start preparing. And I was like, how can people be so normal and think so normal and plan things when I'm not able to, comprehend what is happening with me and do my daily things in the normal, manner. And then, of course, I had to practice my parans, I had to practice my tals and padans and everything. And of course, very hesitatingly, I was practicing. I knew I was not doing my best. I knew I was not the same because I didn't have the same flow within me while I was practicing my dance. But then, yes, I was practicing, and somehow I feel the more and more I practiced, that started taking me away from all the negativity that was filled up in my head. That started pushing me away. That is, of course, the exam happened. I don't think I did 100% because I was still in, I can't explain what kind of a mental frame of mind I was. But then I did. I cleared my exam too. And even after the exam got over, I continued practicing my Kathak for an hour or two every day. And that was something that was holding me back from watching news, watching the negativity around, thinking about the negativity around. And that is something probably, it helped me get back on track. Otherwise, I didn't know where I was slipping into. I don't know what exactly is the meaning of depression. I don't also know whether I was into getting into a depression, but I was getting into a very difficult kind of a state of mind. If I speak about myself very, very frankly, I don't know where I was heading. I was totally confused. I didn't know what to expect next. None of the experts, none of the virologists, best virologists in the world, none of the best academicians, none of the best politicians, whoever, nobody could say for sure, well, this is the situation right now, and the solution will be so and so, and everything is going to be fine maybe after 15 days, 10 days, 1 month, 2 months. Nobody was saying anything with any kind of surety. And I don't know why I was trying to seek answers. I mean, I don't know, or maybe it's just human nature, probably to know what is going to happen next. That too much of uncertainty, too much of fear, and that mental restlessness was taking me in. It was taking me down the drain. Thankfully it was my passion for Kathak that, though reluctantly, but then gradually I started moving towards normalcy. Of course, that frame of mind didn't just dissipate within a week or 10 days. It took me at least 1.5 months or maybe 2 months to get out of it completely. But one thing was for sure that I realized, we have this mind, and that mind has a mind of its own. and it keeps on moving in a particular direction. And then and of course, that mind of the mind also starts dictating terms to us. We should not let ourselves, become slaves to that mind of the mind. We have to be able to have a control over what we are thinking, control over our thought process, and move in a particular direction. Even though during those difficult times, I remember I kept on reminding me, though I knew I couldn't understand what was happening to me, I couldn't understand when it would come to an end, but I just kept on reminding myself that nothing lasts forever, neither happiness nor pain. And to sail in a particular direction, whatever situation it is, we have to keep on adjusting the sails. We have to keep on moving. And I kept on dancing. And I'm finally here with a book and right in front of you. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Dr. Smita. I think you've spoken right from the heart. And that's one more reason to actually go through the book, because I understand is that, whatever that you were writing down as your experiences on a daily basis, etc., you finally chronicled it into a book. Maybe that was the motivation. Maybe the idea was to, help others and so on and so forth. So that's what we have been seeing in our series of conversations. Different people have found their own outlet. So in your case, maybe it was Kathak. The only good thing probably that has come out of this entire corona pandemic, of course, one thing is we have realized the power of video conferencing, and that's how we can do these kind of things.
Yes.
And the other thing probably that has come out, the good thing is that the focus is on mental health, because a lot of people who previously did not report any kind of so-called abnormal activity have now started reporting it. And I think to talk more about those, especially about the mind during the pandemic, it's best to have a trained clinical psychologist present her views. So I would just like to invite Ms. Suneha Nayak at this point of time to share her views, especially in light of many of the issues which have been flagged by Dr. Smita. Maybe some of your experiences would be in line with that. Of course, you are speaking from the expert's point of view, and she's spoken from the patient's point of view, if I may. So we are all patients and experts, at the same point of time, at different points of time. So please, Dr. Suneha.
Thanks, Dr. Parikshit, for such a lovely introduction. And firstly, I would really love to appreciate Smita. Thanks for sharing your story in such a beautiful manner. I know it takes a lot of courage to do that in a public platform, and you really did it well. Hats off to you. And before I start, I would also like to thank all the founder members and Archana ma'am for this Proud Depressive movement, because this is the need of the hour. And it's spreading mental health awareness to everyone and giving them a safe space where they can come up and talk about themselves and appreciate each other, support each other during this time. So I'm glad I'm a part of this, and I would love to thank Sanjeevan uncle as well, because he put me across to this group. So a big thanks to him. So let me just share my screen with all of you.
He's not with us today. Normally he is always there. He's traveling, so he's not with us today. But I'm sure he'll be watching you on YouTube.
Definitely. So the theme for today is the mind in the pandemic. So let me first talk about the mental health crisis in India due to COVID-19 before and after. So earlier, there were 7% Indians who suffered from mental illness in India, which rise to 20% by the end of the pandemic. And globally, it was like 1 in 7 people earlier, and now it is 1 in 5 people. And 15% account for mental illness globally of Indians. So, according to WHO, it says that we are transitioning towards what is known as the mental health pandemic right now in India and more developing countries. So, we all know mental health is very much related to.
Okay, let me just interrupt you, Suneha. Mr. Sanjeevan Lal is here. Hi, sir.
Hello, Uncle. How are you?
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, yeah. So we have been transitioning to what is known as the mental health pandemic. So mental health is positively correlated with the economy of the country. So talking about the happiness index, India stands in 139 out of 149 countries in the world. So the rate is really alarming. And there has been a 29% surge in PTSD, cases of post traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, anger, insomnia during the quarantine, and also cases of conversion disorder and somatization, leading to high psychological distress. And talking about mental health professionals, first let me get to the budget. India uses around 0.05% of their budget in treatment of mental illness, so which accounts for around 33 paise for one patient in a year. And we have one psychiatrist for about 1 lakh patients, where the need is at least three. We have 1,000 clinical psychologists, whereas the need is at least 20,000. And 900 psychiatric social workers, whereas the need is 35,000 at least. And 1,500 psychiatric nurses, whereas the need is 30,000. And also, we have been seeing that in the pandemic, there have been a lot of talks about mental health awareness and people advocating mental health, which is a very good thing, which is a very positive thing. But there have been instances where people started giving counseling session without having the credentials. So it is very important and very much needed to govern these licensing and the regulatory bodies as well. For psychiatrists, we have the Medical Council of India. For clinical psychologists and psychiatric social workers, we have Rehabilitation Council of India, which authorizes the license for them to practice in India. So we need more such bodies to look into these things to avoid malpractices. And who is the most vulnerable and the most affected in the pandemic? It is definitely the children, the teens, the migrants, laborers, geriatric population, women, and the frontline workers. So even the frontline workers are overburdened with work, and we have seen cases when they are not even paid timely and not even provided with the proper protective gear as well, and they face a lot of social stigma after the COVID duty as well. And there have been instances where the children, the sudden shift was really traumatic for them. From going to school, suddenly the schools have shut down and they have to stay home. Earlier, what parents used to say, like, don't spend so much of time in your gadget, reduce your screen time and all. But right now, because of the pandemic, it's like the whole classes and everything is on Zoom, Google Meet, and the assignments are given on WhatsApp groups. So you can't even say that. So there have been instances of atypical depression where, there have been symptoms like irritability, headaches, restlessness, breathlessness, and once they are away from their gadgets, they start experiencing withdrawal symptoms. So it's very important to look into the matter and use our gadgets in moderation and take care of ourselves also during the pandemic. And there have been surge in cases of alcohol abuse, domestic violence against women, childhood sexual abuse. So these all things have come up, and it are kind of a lot of triggers which are there for increasing the mental illness. And the age group which is most affected is 21 to 35 years of age as per studies. So coming back to what Smita explained, like she said that Kathak was the call from her guru for practicing Kathak was like a wake up call for her. So she did not seek mental help at that time, but then definitely what she did was therapeutic because she was very passionate about Kathak. And that was like a driving force and a source of motivation for her to do something. Even she did not feel like doing it in the beginning. She felt that she's not doing well, but the thing is, she tried. She did not stop working, which led to stop the downward spiraling of depression, which usually happens. So, this is a technique of cognitive behavior therapy, which is the standard line of treatment for depression, uh, which we use. So, what happens in behavioral activation is you monitor a person's daily activities, starting from when he wakes up till he goes to sleep on a very hourly basis. So he sets some goals, and depending on the goals, he does those activities and keeps a check of his mood throughout the day. So, like as per this, this depends on the cognitive model. Like your feelings affect your thought, and your thought affects your action. It's all interconnected to each other. So, suppose, for example, I lost my job. So, because of the event, I might feel that I am upset, I am sad. These are my feelings, which could lead to the thoughts like I am worthless, I am of no use, which will again lead to the actions like I will be mostly on my bed. I would not like to do anything. I would not like to talk to people, which again will increase my feelings of sadness. So this is a vicious cycle which goes on. So in case of Smita, like if we say like the fear of uncertainty is the trigger right now. So she was feeling confused, she was feeling numb, which led to thoughts like I don't know why is this happening to me, and she started finding reasons for it. So there were a lot of automatic thoughts which were going on, which definitely led to the action like she was not feeling like talking to people around her, which again increased those feelings foremost. So this is how our mind works. Also, she mentioned about the mind has a mind of its own, which is a very interesting topic. It's like in psychology, we say it's metacognition, thinking about thinking. So it's like a super mind which governs the whole mind, body, spirit, and there is no way that you can control it, and it is super powerful. So the only trick by which you can control that is, just let it be and just let the thoughts flow, and just the thoughts are just thoughts, but not facts. The meaning that you attach to the thoughts will is how you will feel, and the moment you change your manner of relation towards the thought, your feelings will automatically change. So I have a quote by John Kabat-Zinn, who's a pioneer of mindfulness-based stress reduction. And here it resonates with this situation very well. You cannot stop the waves, but you can definitely learn how to surf. So I hope you can relate to this. So wrapping it up, there are few mental health checkpoints here. We should focus on what is in your control, and what is in our control is your present moment, the right now moment, and your own actions. You cannot control actions of other people around you, but yourself. And secondly, set clear, concise, and achievable goals. Because it could be as small as getting up of the bed and folding your bed sheets. So these are not little things, because these little things pile up and do wonders later on. So, and you should emphasize on what you're able to do, emphasizing on the positives, basically. And you can also pursue a goal, a skill, which will help you relax a bit. Then, thirdly, check in with your loved ones. In the pandemic, it has been very difficult for us to personally go and meet people around, but definitely we have our audio calls, we have video calls where we can let them know that we are there for each other. We are there to support each other, and spend quality time with your family members. By quality time, I mean not just being there physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And at that time, do not, engage in criticizing each other. Rather, respect each other's opinion and appreciate each other for having them. And last but not the least, use affirmative statements, because research has shown that the how you frame your statements and positive encouragement has a huge impact on your self-esteem, self-confidence, and the way you relate to people around. So, using affirmative statements help you develop cordial relationships with your family members, with your co-workers. It builds resilience and it uplifts your mood and helps you cope better with difficult situations and stress. So, here I wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening so patiently. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
So thank you very much, Suneha. I think that was very lucidly put, and the many of the questions which Dr. Smita had, I mean, at that point of time, I think they make more sense after your presentation. And also one point, which of course, apart from all the data which you put forward, another very important point which you put forward was that. Untrained people who are masquerading as psychologists, etc., can actually end up doing much more damage than benefit. So that's something which is very important, and bodies like RCI, etc., have to become far more active and proactive. So thank you very much for presenting your views. I would now like to request Madam Sejal to just try and play Archana Verma ma'am's video once again. The video message, if you are able to play it, please. Because like I said, technology can often be treacherous. Lets you down at the most inopportune moment.
Hi everybody, hi Proud Depressive and friends. I cannot tell you how left out I'm feeling missing this first session ever of our
Just wait for the video to come on, and this is like I was talking about technology. I was attending a conference yesterday, and they had asked all the presenters, paper presenters, to send in 6-minute, 7-minute videos of their presentations. I found it very stupid that हमसे पेपर भी प्रेजेंट करवा रहे हैं और हमको ये भी बोल रहे हैं कि 7 minute का वीडियो बना के भेजो. I found it to be extremely stupid. But then I realized there will be cases wherein people will be thrown out. The internet will throw them out. So that's why, as a backup, the recording was made. So let's see if it works this time.
Hi everybody, hi Proud Depressive and friends. I cannot
Third
tell
time
you
unlucky.
how left out
Okay.
I'm feeling.
So I can
missing
just tell
this
you what
first session
she's trying to say.
ever of our Proud
She's trying to
Depressive
say that
conversations.
she's very
As you all
excited,
know,
and this
that
is the first
COVID
time ever
has
that she's
played
missing out a
havoc
session,
in the minds of
and
people.
that's because of
In a
some
way,
work
it's been good
commitments.
because it has
And
put
she's saying that she
mental
has
health
already
as
read
an agenda,
Dr. Smita's book, and
and
she found
people
it
have
extremely
started.
interesting. And she says she's looking forward to hearing this session, and she will be looking at it on YouTube later on. And of course, she says that she wishes all the best to Suneha, whom she calls a member of the Young Brigade or something like that. So that's what she's saying, to the best of my recall. Okay, because I have seen this. And okay, there is a YouTube link which can be looked at, and Sejal ma'am has put it in the chat box. So we can just have a look at it whenever needed. For some reason, like I said, technology is very treacherous. These problems happen. I would still like to thank Lisa ma'am for taking the, all the responsibility of arranging, coordinating. It's not an easy task, trust me. I mean, those of us who are in academics know that organizing a seminar or a conference is not an easy task. So, yeah.
But you are also always helping, yeah? I must say
no.
that. You being the first founder member, very, very adorable Parikshit, I would always say.
No. Thank you very much, ma'am. Very kind of you. So I would just like to open up the floor for questions. If anybody has questions from either of our speakers, so please go ahead. either in text or in you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask anybody. Dr. Smita, do you have any questions from Suneha, or you will ask her offline?
I think Suneha has got few questions for Smita.
Okay, please.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any questions actually.
Any comments, observations,
Any
something like that?
comments?
Yeah, I would like to really appreciate the way you have narrated your story so beautifully and precisely that I don't have literally any questions to ask. Also, I would like to ask one more thing: whether while having those episodes of depression, did you feel that you had perceived support from your family members and friends at that time?
The first and foremost thing is I couldn't understand whether what I was feeling was something that everyone was feeling, or why is it affecting me so much? I know things are going bad. The migrant crisis was going out of hand. People were losing their jobs. I had some of my students who called me up and they said they've just been laid off. Overnight, they get a call and they say they've been asked to stay at home. So such things did happen. Then people who were dying. So there was so many things that were happening, very depressing things that were happening. And I thought, maybe I should just call up somebody and at least talk with someone. And I used to call up people, but then I used to find the same conversation repeating on the other side. There was,
Right.
everyone was speaking about the same thing. Yeah, even we are not allowed to get out. God knows how long this is going to go on. And, so it was just a chain I felt. So that also then I stopped. And then, but I didn't think that I needed any help at that point of time because I was just maybe trying to understand what was happening to me. And then
But at the back of your mind, did you feel that, whenever you needed that, someone is there for you? Did you had that in your the back of your mind?
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, so this is what I want to say because this is what is known as perceived social support. This is a protective factor which helps people get out of their problems, and also it has a good prognosis if people have support. And also, I had asked Mita that she does not have any comorbid conditions or pre-existing mental illness. So, because their presence would have led to poor prognosis. So it was good, and she is very resilient because she already tries to question everything, and she tries to see the optimistic view in everything. So I think that is one of the protective gears which helped her get out of it.
Excellent. So I would just like to ask you, Suneha, when you were, looking at especially the cases during the pandemic, wherein people who, like you said, did not have any comorbidities or genetic disposition or any other behavioral conditions which would lead to any kind of episodes of prolonged sadness. Let's not even call it depression, prolonged sadness, because there may be cases which are not showing the signs of clinical depression. So how would you be dealing with that? What would be your menu or options or something like that?
Firstly, it is very normal to feel sadness because the pandemic did had a lot of repercussions and uncertainty which it got with it. So, firstly, we need to address what is actually bothering them. Make them talk it out, like what is it and what are the factors. Like look for the maintaining factors basically. If there is something, there are triggers around, so try keep away from the triggers, like watching social media and the news constantly. It hampers in the treatment process. So look for triggers and the maintaining factors, and also address what are the exact issues, let them express. And also use of mindfulness and acceptance, because I think that is the way to cope with it.
So news and current affairs, I used to be a fan of until 9 o'clock news became a slanging match. So I'm extremely thankful to all those news anchors, etc. You know, a panel of 15, 16 people, and they're only shouting at each other. So usme kuch, there is no news. So I stopped watching the news long ago, actually. So,
Same
you know,
here. I stopped watching it last year.
so exactly. So, that's probably what. But then, Suneha, there may be some people, I mean, like Dr. Smita mentioned, that maybe family support, spouse, or whatever else. Maybe there for certain coping mechanism, if you will, maybe there for some people. For some people, there may not be that kind of mechanism. The family itself may say, "अरे तुम तो try नहीं कर रहे हो, अरे ये तो कुछ नहीं है, अरे ये तो everybody feels sad, अरे कोई बात नहीं, वो थोड़ी सी exercise करो ठीक हो जाएगा." What will you do in such cases? What kind of advice or what kind of counseling would you offer in those cases? Because I would say that
First,
Dr. Smith has been very lucky in that regard. I mean, maybe understanding family, spouse support, children, whatever. So many people may not have that.
definitely. So, firstly, I would like to see what is the severity at that moment. If it is mild to moderate, it could be dealt with therapy and, talking, psychoeducating the family members about what is the symptoms and what are the maintaining factors, like, as I said, use of affirmation and literally cutting down on criticism. So these are some practices which need to be built not only with people having problems but everywhere in general. So these are the things which I would like to address, because in case of severe depression, definitely we will suggest for them to go for
Hi, everybody. Hi,
pharmacotherapy
Proud
as
to
well.
Fair enough. Okay. Anybody else with any kind of questions or comments to any of the panelists, please?
Okay, I just wanted to ask you. So, what I was going through, what was that? What exactly was that? If I'm feeling very sad and I'm feeling very shattered, watching news, and I'm watching it every day, and what was happening to me, so that was sadness, confusion. What was that then? And it was affecting my mind. It was affecting my mind, and all of a sudden, it started happening. So, like, can it happen all of a sudden also?
Yes, and again, one more point I would like to add: when it started happening abruptly, which is a good prognosis. So the more suddenly it happens, the more suddenly you get out of it. And the more slower it progresses, the more difficult it is to treat. Yeah. And whatever you felt at that time, was it affecting your day-to-day functioning, your work, your doing of daily chores at your place? Was it affecting that? And if yes, then till what extent?
No, not much. The daily things are going on as usual, of course. But then I didn't feel very, inclined towards doing something more, something extra. I used to push myself. I'm the type, I keep on pushing myself. If I'm told that, look, okay, fine, maybe this is enough for you, then I'll try a little more, a little harder. So that is something I was doing. But then, and I didn't like the fact that I was feeling that way. So that was, I could understand that something is going wrong, but and I didn't even go to think, like, I was trying to find some solace. I was trying to go out sometimes, but then again I used to come back feeling very more depressed. I said, nobody on the streets, not a soul over there. And that silence was deafening, I should say. Because Mumbai is, even I think any city for that matter, you would never, in the middle of the day, you're going out and there's not a single person around. Nothing, absolutely, totally, vacant roads, streets, gullies, everything. So, I don't know, I was feeling very jittery also. Sometimes I used to feel like crying, but then I didn't know what exactly. Yes, that support that you're speaking about, at times I did feel that I needed that support very badly, but then, I had to pull on because I knew I had to be here on my own for a time, at least for brief period of time until things didn't get back to normal. So yes.
So before these episodes happened, you had a very well-adjusted pre-morbid functioning, which was again a added factor. And what you were experiencing was the typical symptoms of depression, definitely, because it exceeded 2 weeks, and
It did.
you had yes. So it accounts for mild depression as per ICD-10, if I say, and so there you would feel like you don't enjoy the things you used to enjoy. There is lack of interest in your daily activities, low mood, fatigue, weakness, and these are the symptoms which you felt, and you had a lot of confusion as well at that time. You were figuring out what to, and you definitely there was difficulty in focusing on one task at a time, concentrating, and why is this happening to me? So definitely it affected your self-esteem.
Yes.
So this is what I would say. It does account for depression, but somewhat mild to moderate in between. For to be able to correctly diagnose it, I will have to sit with you separately and talk in detail.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so
you.
thank you very much. That was, I think, very, very straightforward. And yeah, so many actually, from what I have seen, observed, and learnt, not only during these last 13 sessions of Proud Depressives, even otherwise, I find that mental illness, depression, etc., these are problems usually associated with people who are very sensitive, people who are very intelligent. The psychologist can, of course, correct me because she has studied
That's
it.
true.
I have only